Under a sky heavy with silence, the streets of Dar es Salaam are no longer calm. They pulse with the sound of drums, chants, and defiance. Tanzania, once praised as East Africa's island of peace, is now trembling on the edge of its own awakening. For decades, this nation stood as a model of discipline, stability, and quiet leadership. But all that changed in 2025. A simple act, the blocking of opposition figure John Hche from traveling to neighboring Kenya for Raila Odinga's burial, has ignited something no one expected: a generation's anger. From the crowded university halls to the busy Boda stations, young Tanzanians are no longer whispering. They are shouting. Their message is clear: we are not afraid. What began as one man's denied passport has become a nation's demand for freedom and a regional cry for justice. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, once hailed as a symbol of unity and progress, now stands accused of suppressing dissent, silencing the press, and turning democracy into a word without meaning. Her government calls it stability. The youth call it control. The question dividing the country is simple yet profound. Has Tanzania's democracy fallen into the hands of fear? As tension spreads beyond its borders and solidarity protests erupt in Kenya, the world is watching quietly, cautiously. But silence can also be complicity. So tonight we ask, could this unrest mark the birth of East Africa's next great democratic revolution, or the beginning of another chapter of lost hope? Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind the fire burning in Tanzania. And if you believe that Africa deserves leaders who listen, not those who silence, then please share this story and subscribe. Because what happens in Tanzania today will echo far beyond its borders tomorrow. In April 2025, Tanzania's calm illusion cracked. The arrest of opposition leader Tundu Lissu sent a chill through the nation's political soul. Once celebrated as a fearless voice for justice and democracy, Lissu had returned from exile with a message of reform and reconciliation. Instead, he was accused of treason, a charge so heavy that it silenced not only him, but an entire generation's hope. The official narrative claimed he was plotting against the state. Yet across the streets of Dodoma and Arusha, few believed it. To them, this was not justice, it was a warning. If they can silence Tundu, one university student said, who among us is safe? Weeks turned into months. Fear turned into quiet resistance. Every headline felt like déjà vu: arrests of journalists, new restrictions on rallies, and sudden disappearances of local activists. But the real explosion came in October when John Hche, Lissu's longtime ally and close friend, was stopped by security agents at Julius Nyerere International Airport. His crime: he was on his way to Kenya to attend the funeral of Raila Odinga, a Pan-African giant admired across the continent as a champion of democracy. What followed next was a spark that caught the dry grass of frustration. News spread within hours. On TikTok and X, hashtags like "I stand with Hche" and "Nang Free Tanzania" exploded. Thousands of young Tanzanians flooded the streets not just in Dar es Salaam, but across Moshi, Mwanza, and Mbeya. They carried placards that read, "Freedom is not treason." They sang old liberation songs once used during Tanzania's struggle for independence, songs their grandparents sang under the leadership of Julius Nyerere, the father of the nation. But this time the lyrics had a new meaning. For many of them, this was not merely about one man or one funeral. It was about a deeper betrayal. President Samia Suluhu Hassan, the first woman to lead Tanzania, had once been a symbol of continuity and progress after the sudden death of John Pombe Magufuli. She spoke of reconciliation, national unity, and women's leadership in a patriarchal system. But over time, that image began to fracture. Under her watch, civil liberties tightened, the press grew silent, and opposition voices were pushed to the margins. Each new decree claimed to protect stability. Each arrest, they said, defended national security. Yet to many Tanzanians, those words began to sound eerily familiar, echoes of control, dressed in the language of peace. The moment John Hche was denied the right to leave the country, the last thread of trust snapped. Within hours, motorbike riders known locally as Boda began riding in circles through city centers, honking their horns in defiance. University students organized sit-ins demanding the immediate release of political detainees. Churches and mosques turned into shelters for protesters fleeing tear gas. And in the midst of the chaos, a new chant rose: "If the law serves fear, we will serve truth." That single line became the anthem of Tanzania's youth movement. It united the restless undergraduates in Dar es Salaam with the struggling street vendors in Mwanza. For the first time, the voices of frustration merged into something larger, a collective awakening. International observers called it Tanzania's digital rebellion. It was leaderless, spontaneous, but deeply emotional. No party flag, no clear manifesto. Just a demand that power listen before it's too late. By the end of that week, the government had imposed partial internet restrictions, claiming foreign misinformation. But the fire was already lit. And as one protester told an independent journalist before being arrested, they can stop our networks, but they can't stop our heartbeat. That heartbeat, defiant, young, and unyielding, was now echoing beyond Tanzania's borders. By the second week of October 2025, Tanzania was on edge. The government's silence had turned into suspicion, and suspicion into rage. What began as peaceful marches quickly transformed into an unstoppable wave of defiance, one that no official statement could calm. At the Sarari-Isabia border, where Tanzania meets Kenya, an extraordinary scene unfolded. Hundreds of young people from both countries, Kenyans carrying flags, Tanzanians holding handwritten posters, converged in an act of cross-border solidarity. They were separated by a thin fence, yet united by a single emotion: outrage. As they chanted together, "Justice for Hche, freedom for Lissu," their voices rolled across the fields like thunder. Boda riders revved their engines in rhythm, creating a pulsing roar that echoed through the air. For the first time in years, East African youth divided by borders and politics were marching as one. Social media lit up with live streams. Videos showed protesters standing under rain waving their flags high, while tear gas clouds drifted from Tanzanian territory. One young woman, drenched and trembling, looked straight into a camera and said, "We came to bury Raila Odinga, not democracy." Her words went viral across the continent. Inside Dar es Salaam, the atmosphere grew darker. Security forces were deployed in full gear. The special anti-riot units moved through the streets with armored trucks. Curfews were whispered before being officially announced. In the city's main squares, journalists reported seeing students dragged into police vans for disturbing public order. President Samia Suluhu Hassan finally broke her silence on national television. Dressed in her traditional hijab, her tone was firm, almost maternal. "No one will destabilize Tanzania. We will not tolerate lawlessness under the disguise of freedom." To her supporters, it was a statement of strength, a woman defending her nation against chaos. To her critics, it was confirmation of tyranny. Kenya's reaction was cautious but visible. The Kenyan Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement urging dialogue and restraint, while youth groups in Nairobi organized vigils, holding candles and placards that read, "Borders cannot silence justice." The symbolism was powerful. The ghost of Raila Odinga, long a champion for democracy, seemed to hover over this new generational movement. Meanwhile, international organizations struggled to keep up. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International condemned the arbitrary arrests and excessive force. Yet regional institutions like the African Union remained silent, their reluctance echoing the same paralysis seen in earlier African crises. And as the silence of institutions grew, the noise of the people became louder. Digital activists across East Africa turned this moment into a living campaign. Memes compared President Samia's image to that of past authoritarian leaders. Others posted split-screen videos: on one side, Samia smiling during her early days in office. On the other, armored vehicles rolling through her capital. The caption read, "From mother of unity to mother of control." It wasn't just criticism, it was heartbreak. Among older Tanzanians, the pain was personal. Many had lived through the socialist experiments of Julius Nyerere, who built his country on ideals of equality and freedom. To see those ideals now reduced to fear and surveillance felt like betrayal. In rural towns, elders watched the chaos on small radios and asked, "Is this the same Tanzania we built by mid-October?" Over 200 arrests had been reported, though the government denied the figures. Despite threats, young people continued to flood the streets, carrying a phrase that had now become their rallying cry: "If Tundu Lissu can be silenced, then none of us are free." That sentence, simple yet defiant, echoed through social media rallies and classrooms. And in that defiance, Tanzania's youth found something rare: unity. Unity not built by politicians but by pain, not by parties but by principle. As one protester told a BBC reporter before being detained, "We are the children of peace, but we were raised on silence. Now we choose voice." In those words, the heartbeat of a nation could be heard, steady, fragile, and unafraid. When the smoke began to fade, what remained was not calm, but silence. A silence heavy with fear, confusion, and loss. In the weeks following the protests, Tanzania's streets grew emptier. Soldiers stayed stationed at intersections. University dormitories were searched without warrants. The same youth who had marched with courage now whispered their conversations in fear. Parents told their children to delete videos, to stay away from gatherings, to wait until things cool down. But the truth was, things were not cooling down. They were hardening. Local media reported that more than 1,000 young people had been detained. Some were later released without charge, others simply vanished. Opposition offices were sealed. Independent journalists found their websites blocked. The few who dared to speak to international outlets described an atmosphere where every word felt dangerous. In Dar es Salaam's marketplaces, small traders complained of declining customers. "People don't come out anymore," said one woman selling cassava. "Everyone is afraid not of thieves, but of police." Religious leaders began stepping in quietly. A pastor in Arusha called for forgiveness and dialogue. An imam in Dodoma urged restraint, reminding worshippers that anger can destroy what patience can rebuild. Yet beneath these appeals for calm was a deeper unease, the feeling that Tanzania's democratic promise had fractured. Politically, the damage was severe. The ruling party's image, once associated with order and development, now carried the scent of repression. Civil servants were torn between loyalty and conscience. Some resigned quietly, others stayed to protect what little space remained for reform. President Samia Suluhu Hassan found herself increasingly isolated. Her cabinet ministers repeated the same phrases: foreign interference, national security, stability at all costs. But to ordinary Tanzanians, those words had lost their power. Stability had come to mean silence. Meanwhile, Tundu Lissu remained behind bars, his court hearings postponed again and again. The case became a symbol of what many called the death of accountability. Even supporters of the ruling party began to question how long the government could keep suppressing dissent before breaking under its own contradictions. The economic ripple was equally painful. Foreign investors paused projects citing uncertainty. Tourism dropped by nearly 18% after images of tear gas-filled streets circulated online. Young professionals began leaving the so-called silent migration. Kigali, Nairobi, and Lusaka became new destinations for Tanzania's restless generation, seeking opportunity and safety. Inside the country, digital activism turned inward. Instead of street protests, new online networks formed, coded, encrypted, cautious. Students used anonymous accounts to share updates. Activists posted legal guides for detainees. A small but growing underground of civil resistance began to replace formal politics. Yet amid all this repression, something paradoxical was happening, a quiet rebirth of consciousness. People began revisiting the speeches of Julius Nyerere, the founding father, rediscovering his vision of unity built on truth and justice. His words, "without freedom, development is impossible," began reappearing on murals and graffiti across Dar es Salaam. This perhaps was the government's greatest mistake. It had tried to kill dissent, but instead resurrected memory. By November, the sense of betrayal had settled deep in the national psyche. Tanzania was no longer the country it had been. The question echoing through homes, classrooms, and mosques was painfully simple. If truth is punished, what kind of peace are we protecting? No official could answer it. And in that unanswered question lay the quiet realization that something irreversible had begun, not just a protest, but a transformation. In Washington, the Tanzanian crisis landed softly, as most African crises do. There were statements, not strategies; concern, not conviction. The State Department issued a brief note urging all sides to remain calm and respect democratic principles. Then, silence. To most Americans, Tanzania is a distant name, a safari destination, a place of peace and smiles. The images now circulating online of tear gas-armored trucks and crying students clash with that picture. Yet for those who still remember the Cold War years, the echoes are familiar. A familiar script of Western diplomacy: stability over freedom, order over justice. Behind closed doors, U.S. policymakers face a dilemma. Tanzania is an ally in the fight against terrorism, a trade partner in East Africa, and a buffer in a region threatened by instability from Somalia and Congo. To openly criticize President Samia Suluhu Hassan would risk pushing her closer to Russia or China. And so, as the violence escalates, Washington whispers instead of speaking. European leaders follow the same pattern. The European Union condemns violence on both sides, a phrase that has become a diplomatic reflex. Meanwhile, France and the UK quietly prioritize their mining and infrastructure deals. Democracy becomes a slogan, not a stance. But outside the corridors of power, a different voice is rising. In the African diaspora, particularly among Tanzanian communities in the US, Canada, and the UK, protests are forming. At the Tanzanian embassy in Washington, D.C., dozens of young people have gathered holding signs that read, "You can't imprison the future." For many African Americans, this struggle feels deeply personal. They see in Tanzania's youth the same battle for voice and dignity that once defined the civil rights era. Commentators on black media channels draw parallels between Samia Suluhu's tightening grip and the long history of Western-backed leaders who traded freedom for foreign approval. It's a pattern as old as post-colonial Africa. When a leader suppresses dissent but keeps foreign investors happy, Western capitals look away. But when a leader like Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso dares to defy that system, the headlines call him radical. That contrast has not gone unnoticed. Across African think tanks and media outlets, analysts are beginning to ask the same question: why does the world fear African independence more than African oppression? Meanwhile, within Africa itself, reactions are divided. Kenya's president, balancing between diplomacy and empathy, calls for peaceful resolution. Uganda remains silent, wary of fueling its own youth movements. Rwanda watches closely, knowing that unrest in Tanzania could ripple through its borders. And in Burkina Faso, commentators on national television speak openly. What is happening in Tanzania today shows the cost of silence. Ibrahim Traore's vision of sovereignty without repression must become the African standard. Those words strike deep. The Tanzanian crisis has become more than a domestic issue. It is now a mirror reflecting the continent's contradictions and the world's selective concern. In the end, it isn't just about one president or one protest. It's about a global pattern of double standards where the same nations that preach freedom too often reward control. And that quiet hypocrisy perhaps is the most dangerous silence of all. When nations reach a point where truth becomes treason, they stand at the edge of something far greater than crisis. They stand at the edge of transformation. Tanzania's story is not unique. It is the echo of a struggle heard across many lands, from Nairobi to Ouagadougou, from Port-au-Prince to Atlanta, the same fight between those who fear change and those who dare to demand it. But here in East Africa, that tension feels raw, immediate, and deeply human. For older generations, this moment is heartbreaking. They remember a Tanzania built on ideals, unity, dignity, and justice under Julius Nyerere, a nation that believed peace was its moral compass. But peace without freedom, as Nyerere once warned, is merely silence under supervision. And now the youth, the sons and daughters of that dream, are asking a question their leaders cannot answer. Can democracy survive without courage? As night falls over Dar es Salaam, you can almost hear the quiet hum of defiance still vibrating beneath the surface. In every closed classroom, in every home where parents whisper to their children about hope, a seed is being planted, one that no regime can fully uproot. History tells us that such seeds grow slowly, quietly, until one day they rise through the cracks of fear. And when they do, nations remember who they are. Across the ocean, those of us watching in the United States and Europe, in the diaspora, must also ask ourselves, what do we choose to support: stability that silences or sovereignty that listens? For every African leader who dares to serve their people instead of foreign interests, there is another who learns to govern by fear. We can no longer look away. Because Tanzania today is not just a story about one president. It is a mirror for the entire world, a reminder that democracy, once neglected, fades quietly like light without oxygen. And perhaps in this fragile moment, another African voice offers the most fitting reminder. In the heart of Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traore once said, "Sovereignty begins where fear ends." Maybe that is the lesson East Africa is learning now, painfully but necessarily. If you believe that Africa's future must belong to its fearless youth, if you believe that the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is still worth defending, then share this message, subscribe to this channel, and let your voice stand with those who refuse silence. Because the struggle for freedom in Tanzania, in Burkina Faso, and beyond is not just Africa's story. It is humanity's story.